The classroom was cold the next morning. Or perhaps Yuna only felt that way because of what she was about to hear. She sat in her usual place. Back row, empty desk, hands folded. Around her, students from 12 species prepared their recording devices. The Velith students seemed especially eager today. They sat straighter. They smiled more. They knew what was coming. Instructor Velthos entered and walked to the center of the room. His crystalline skin caught the light as he raised one of his 4 arms. "Today we examine Case Study 7B, he announced. The Fall of Hawan Colony. A holographic image appeared above him. Yuna recognized it instantly. The green hills of her childhood. The silver towers of the capital city. The small house near the eastern river, where she had learned to read, to run, to dream. All of it was gone now. All of it had been burning the last time she saw it. Hawan was a human colony world in the outer territories, Velthos continued. 12 years ago, it was the site of a significant military engagement. The human defenders were defeated in less than 40 hours. Today, we will analyze why. Yuna's hands tightened beneath the desk. She forced herself to breathe. For the next 2 hours, Velthos explained how her world had died. He spoke of poor defensive positioning. He mentioned resource misallocation. He described communication failures between military units. He presented the massacre as a natural result of human incompetence. He never mentioned the real reasons. He never mentioned that the Velith had jammed all communications for 3 hours before the attack. He never mentioned that they had poisoned the water supply a week earlier, weakening the population. He never mentioned that the peacekeeping force had been an invasion fleet of over 200 warships against a colony with only 12 defense vessels. The official record was a lie. And they were teaching that lie to the next generation of galactic leaders. Yuna sat in silence. She did not move. She did not react. But inside, something was breaking. The human response was slow and disorganized, Velthos said. This is common among younger species. They lack the institutional memory that allows older civilizations to respond effectively to crisis situations. A Velith student raised his hand. It was Ren, the one who mocked Yuna's lack of notes. "Instructor," he said, "is it true that the human military still uses the same defensive doctrines they used at Hawan? Have they learned nothing from their failure?" "An excellent question," Velthos replied. Available intelligence suggests that human military thinking has changed little in the past decade. They remain focused on direct confrontation rather than adaptive response. More lies. Yuna knew this because she had spent 3 years helping to rewrite those exact doctrines. Human military strategy had changed completely after Hawan. They had studied every Velith tactic, analyzed every weakness, prepared for every possible scenario. But the Velith did not know that. And the Academy was making sure nobody else knew it either. The lecture ended. Students filed out. Yuna remained seated until the room was empty, then walked to the window and stared at the stars. "Are you all right?" She turned. A young woman stood behind her, human, with worried eyes and a kind face. Her name was Ji Wu, and she was one of the few genuine students among the human delegation. She studied interspecies communication and believed, truly believed, that education could bring peace. "I'm fine," Yuna said. "You don't look fine." That lecture was... Ji Wu hesitated. "I know Hawan was a human colony. It must be difficult to hear them talk about it like that. It's just history, is it?" Ji Wu moved closer. "Yuna, I've watched you for weeks. You never take notes. You never participate. You look at everything like you're studying it from far away. What's really going on with you?" Yuna felt a moment of genuine warmth. Ji Wu was innocent in a way that Yuna had not been for a very long time. She reminded Yuna of who she might have been if the Velith had never come to Hawan. "I'm just quiet," Yuna said. Some people are quiet. Jiwoo did not look convinced, but she did not push further. If you ever want to talk, I'm in room 447. We humans should stick together out here. After Jiwoo left, Yuna made her way to the station's restricted archives. It was late, and the corridors were nearly empty. She used a security code that Do-yoon had provided, and the heavy doors slid open. Inside, she found terminals connected to the Academy's central database. The same database that contained every lesson plan, every case study, every piece of intelligence that the Academy shared with its students. Yuna worked quickly. She copied files about Hwan, comparing them to what she knew was true. The differences were enormous. Entire battles had been rewritten. Casualty numbers had been changed. The timeline itself had been altered. But there was something else. Something that made her blood run cold. The Academy's curriculum was not just inaccurate. It was coordinated. Every false lesson pointed other species toward strategies that would fail against the Velith. Every weakness they taught about Velith military doctrine was actually a strength. Every opportunity they presented was actually a trap. The Academy was not a school. It was a weapon. And the Velith were using it to prepare the galaxy for conquest. Yuna downloaded everything she could. Then she erased her access logs and slipped back into the corridor. Her communicator buzzed. A message from Do-yoon. Someone reported unusual archive activity. Your sector. Stay invisible. She increased her pace, heart-pounding the next morning. Ambassador Kreth called a meeting of all human students. Kreth was old for a Velith. His gray skin marked with the darker patches that indicated age and status. He had 4 compound eyes, 2 on each side of his narrow face, and they moved independently, watching everything at once. Humanity is a young species, he said, his voice smooth and cold. We Velith wish only to guide you toward a more peaceful future. But we cannot do this if there is distrust between us. He walked slowly along the line of human students, examining each one. There has been unusual activity in the restricted archives. Someone accessed files that are not part of any course curriculum. Someone with human security clearances. Yuna kept her breathing steady. Her face showed nothing. Kreth stopped in front of her. You are Yuna, he said. The quiet one. I have noticed that you never take notes in class. Why is that? Every eye in the room turned toward her. Yuna met Kreth's gaze directly. I have a good memory, she said. Sir. Kreth's compound eyes narrowed. For a long moment, he simply stared at her, his alien mind calculating possibilities. A good memory, he repeated. Yes, I suppose humans must rely on such primitive methods. He leaned closer. But memories can be dangerous things, child. They can make us see patterns that do not exist. They can make us imagine enemies where there are only friends. I understand, sir. Do you? Kreth straightened and addressed the room again. You are all guests here. Guests who are being given knowledge that your species could never have discovered alone. I suggest you remember that and behave accordingly. He left without another word. That night, Yuna stood at her window and watched the stars. She thought about her parents, buried in the ashes of Hwan. She thought about Jiwoo, innocent and kind. She thought about the galaxy, slowly being prepared for Velith domination. She had confirmed her suspicions. The Academy was a lie. The Velith were planning something terrible, and Ambassador Kreth was watching her. The game had become more dangerous. But Yuna had not come here to be safe. She had come here to find the truth. And now that she was finding it, nothing would make her stop. The classroom floated in the darkness of space. Through the curved windows, stars burned like distant fires, and the gas giant Maria Prime painted the void in bands of orange and gold. Inside, 47 students from 12 different species sat in rising rows, their attention fixed on the instructor below. Una sat in the back row. She was human, 24 years old, with black hair cut short and eyes that noticed everything while appearing to notice nothing. Her desk was empty. No tablet, no neural link device, no holographic notepad. While the other students recorded every word, every diagram, every strategic principle, Una simply watched. The Vela students had noticed. They always noticed. "The human does not even pretend to learn," whispered one of them, a tall creature with gray skin and compound eyes that reflected the classroom lights. His name was Rin, and he came from one of the most powerful families in the Velith Dominion. Perhaps their species lacks the capacity for higher education. His companions made sounds that passed for laughter among their kind. Una heard them. She always heard them. But she kept her face calm and her eyes forward, watching instructor Velthos move across the floor below. Velthos was Meridian, a species known for their crystalline skin and 4 powerful arms. He had taught at the Galactic Academy of Strategic Studies for over 200 years, and his course on asymmetric conflict resolution was considered the most difficult in the entire institution. Students who passed his class went on to become admirals, diplomats, and planetary governors. Today, he was teaching about resource denial strategies. "When a smaller force faces a larger enemy," Velthos said, his voice filling the room, "direct confrontation leads to destruction. The wise commander does not fight the enemy's strength. Instead, they attack what the enemy needs to maintain that strength." He waved one arm, and a holographic map appeared in the air. It showed a star system with 3 inhabited planets and dozens of mining stations. "Consider this scenario," he continued. "A colony world faces invasion by a superior force. They cannot win in open battle. What do? A Vela student raised her hand. "They destroy their own resources before the enemy can take them. Scorched earth tactics. A valid approach," Velthos agreed. "But costly. Anyone else?" Una knew the answer. She knew every answer. But she remained silent, her hands folded on her empty desk. The lecture continued for another hour. Velthos explained defensive positions, supply line vulnerabilities, and psychological warfare techniques. Every word was valuable. Every principle was sound. And every word was exactly what Una had helped write 3 years ago, when she worked in Earth's Strategic Defense Division. The information being taught was not wrong. It was incomplete. The Velith wanted other species to believe certain strategies were effective. Certain weaknesses existed, certain approaches would work. But they had carefully removed anything that would actually threaten Velith expansion. Una was here to confirm that suspicion. She was here to watch who believed the lessons and who questioned them. She was here to learn what the Academy chose not to teach. She did not take notes because the lesson was already her assignment. After class, the students filed out toward the dining halls and common areas. Una walked alone, as she always did. The station's corridors were wide enough for the largest species to pass comfortably, and gravity fields adjusted automatically based on each person's biological needs. Her communicator buzzed against her wrist. A message from Diane. She found him in a small observation room overlooking the station's hydroponic gardens. He was older than her by 15 years, with gray touching his temples and the careful posture of a man who had spent decades pretending to be someone else. Officially, he was a cultural attaché assigned to support human students at the Academy. In truth, he was her handler. "You were quiet in class today," he said. "I'm always quiet in class. The Velith are watching you more closely. Ambassador Kreth requested your academic records this morning." Una felt something cold settle in her stomach, but she kept her expression neutral. What did he find? Average grades. Minimal participation. Nothing suspicious. Dahyun turned to face her, but Kreth is not stupid. He knows something is wrong with you. He just doesn't know what. Then I'll stay invisible a little longer. Can you? Before Yuna could answer, her tablet chimed with a notification. Tomorrow's lecture topic had been posted. She read it and felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Case Study 7B, The Fall of HFY Colony. An analysis of defensive failure and resource mismanagement. HFY Colony. The name burned in Yuna's mind like acid. HFY Colony was where she had grown up. HFY Colony was where her parents had died, along with 40,000 other humans, when the Velith conducted what they called a peacekeeping operation 12 years ago. And now it was a case study, a lesson in failure. An example of human weakness to be discussed by aliens who had never seen the bodies, never smelled the burning, never heard the screams. Do-hyun saw her face change. Yuna, whatever you're feeling right now, you need to control it. They're going to talk about my home, she said, her voice barely a whisper. They're going to explain how my people failed, how my parents failed. And you're going to sit there and listen, because that's the mission. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought about her brother Taiho, back on Earth, who had helped design the operation that placed her here. She thought about the thousands of hours she had spent studying Velith tactics, learning their language, understanding their culture. She thought about why she had volunteered for this assignment in the first place. The Velith had killed her family and called it peace. Now they were using that massacre to teach others how humans could be defeated. Yuna opened her eyes. The cold feeling in her stomach had not gone away, but it had changed. It was no longer fear. It was purpose. I'll sit there and listen, she told Do-hyun. But I won't just listen. I'll learn something they don't want me to learn. I'll find out why they're really teaching this. And when I do, they'll regret ever speaking my colony's name. Do-hyun studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. That's why we chose you, he said. Just remember, you're not here for revenge. You're here for truth. Yuna turned back to the window, watching the stars burn in the endless dark. Sometimes, she said quietly, truth is the best revenge. Tomorrow she would sit in that classroom. She would hear lies about her home and her family. She would not react. She would not speak. But she would remember everything. And one day, the Velith would learn that humans were not the weak, forgetful creatures they believed them to be. Humans remembered. Humans planned. Humans waited. And when the time was right, humans taught lessons of their own. The war game was the Academy's most important event of the year. Every student participated. Every species sent observers. And every result was recorded in the permanent archives, used to evaluate which civilizations produced the best military minds. For the Velith, it was another opportunity to prove human weakness. Yuna stood in the briefing room with her team. There were 6 of them, all human, facing a scenario designed by instructor Velthos himself. Their opponents would be a Velith team led by Cadet Ren. The scenario is simple, the briefing officer explained. Your fleet defends a mining station. The enemy fleet attacks. You have 45 minutes to either destroy the enemy or protect the station long enough for reinforcements to arrive. The simulation parameters appeared on the screen. Yuna read them carefully. Her fleet was small. Oh, is small. 12 ships, limited ammunition, weak shields. The Velith fleet was 3 times larger, with superior weapons and faster engines. The reinforcements were programmed to arrive in 50 minutes, 5 minutes after the scenario ended. It was impossible to win. The simulation was designed for humans to lose. But that was not what interested Yuna. What interested her was why. She recognized the scenario. It was based on classified Earth military exercises, the kind that only senior officers should know about. The Velith had somehow obtained this information and used it to create a situation where human tactics would fail completely. The Academy was not just teaching lies. It was stealing secrets and using them against humanity. Suman, her contact on Earth, had warned her about this possibility. Through quantum-encrypted messages, she had told Yuna that Earth intelligence suspected the Academy of Espionage. Now Yuna had proof, but she could not reveal that proof. Not yet. Yuna, said one of her teammates, a young man named Hyan. Do you have any ideas? You always seem to know things. Yuna looked at the screen. She could win this scenario. She knew exactly how. But if she won, she would expose herself. The strategies she would need to use were not in any textbook. They were classified human military doctrines, the real doctrines, the ones developed after Hawan. If she won, the Velith would know that humans had lied about their capabilities. They would know that someone at the Academy had access to information they should not have. They would look very carefully at every human student. They would find her. But if she lost, she would confirm what the Velith wanted to believe. She would make them overconfident. She would protect the real secrets. There was a third option. Follow my lead, Yuna told her team. And trust me. The simulation began. Rin's fleet appeared on the tactical display, moving toward the mining station in standard Velith attack formation. It was aggressive, direct, designed to overwhelm defenders through sheer firepower. They're coming fast, Hyan said. What do? We retreat, Yuna replied. But slowly. Make it look like we're trying to fight. Her team obeyed. They fired their weapons, scored a few hits, then pulled back. The Velith followed, just as she expected. Rin wanted a decisive victory. He wanted to crush the humans completely. Yuna watched the simulation clock. 15 minutes passed. 20. 25. The mining station's shields were failing. Her fleet had lost 4 ships. Everything looked exactly like a human defeat in progress. But Yuna had been doing something else. While appearing to retreat in panic, she had been positioning her remaining ships in a very specific pattern. A pattern that would only matter if someone understood the simulation's underlying code. At the 30-minute mark, she gave her final order. All ships, full power to engines. Head directly for coordinates 774. That's empty space, Hyan protested. Trust me. Her ships flew toward nothing. The Velith fleet followed, confused but eager to finish the kill. Rin ordered his ships to maximum speed. And then the simulation glitched. The screen flickered. Error messages appeared. The Velith ships suddenly found themselves inside an asteroid field that had not been there moments before. What is happening? Rin's voice came through the communication channel. This is a system error. The simulation is broken. The referees called a halt to the exercise. Technical staff rushed to examine the code. The final result was recorded as incomplete due to technical failure. Neither side won. Neither side lost. But Yuna had sent a message. She had exposed that the simulation's data was compromised, that the scenario itself was built on stolen intelligence. And she had done it in a way that looked like an accident. Anyone who really understood the code would see what she had done. Anyone who really understood strategy would recognize the impossible precision of her retreat. After the exercise, Yuna walked alone through the station's corridors. She felt tired but satisfied. She had protected her cover while planting a seed of doubt about the Academy's integrity. You lost on purpose. She stopped. Instructor Velthos stood behind her, his crystalline skin glowing faintly in the corridor lights. The simulation malfunctioned, Yuna said carefully. I had nothing to do with that. You positioned your ships in a pattern that triggered a cascade error in the simulation's spatial algorithms. That requires understanding the code at a level far beyond what any student should possess. Veltha stepped closer. The question is, for whom did you do this? Your own people? Or someone else? Yuna met his forearm gaze. Why would I sabotage a simulation? because you knew you could not win honestly without revealing dangerous knowledge, and because you wanted others to question the simulation's fairness. Velthos tilted his head, an expression that might have been curiosity. You are not what you pretend to be, Una of Earth. I have suspected this for some time. Fear touched Una's heart, but she kept her voice steady. Are you going to report me? Velthos was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet. I have taught at this academy for 200 years. I have watched the curriculum change, watched the lessons become less about truth and more about politics. I have seen promising students from many species taught to fail against the Velith. He paused. I am Meridian. My people were once proud warriors. Now we are scholars in a school that teaches lies. Una understood. Velthos was not loyal to the Velith. He was trapped, just like everyone else. What do you want? She asked. I want someone to expose what this academy has become. I cannot do it myself. I am too watched, too old, too careful. His eyes met hers. But you are young, and you are angry, and you are very, very good at hiding what you really are. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. That night, Una received a message from her brother Taiho on Earth. Intelligence suggests Velith are accelerating expansion plans. Academy may be cover for something bigger. Something happening soon. Be careful. Be ready. Una read the message twice, then deleted it. The game was changing. The Velith were moving faster than expected. And now she had an unexpected ally in Instructor Velthos. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere beyond them, Earth was preparing for whatever came next. Somewhere beyond them, her brother was working to protect humanity. And here, on this station filled with lies, Una was the sharp edge of the blade that would cut through the darkness. She was ready. The diplomatic summit brought leaders from all 12 star systems to Concordia Station. Ships filled the docking bays. Flags and banners decorated the corridors. And everywhere, security officers watched for threats. Ambassador Krath watched. Una. She felt his compound eyes following her through crowded hallways. During meals, even when she sat alone in observation rooms. He had not accused her of anything since their conversation weeks ago, but he had not forgotten her either. He knows something is wrong with you, Doyen said during one of their brief meetings. He just cannot prove it yet, that I need to be more careful. You need to be invisible. The summit is the perfect opportunity for the Velith to remove anyone they consider a threat. One accident, one disappearance, and nobody would notice. Una nodded. She understood the danger, but she also understood the opportunity. Admiral Yunji had arrived with the Earth delegation. Officially, she was a diplomatic advisor. In truth, she commanded Earth's entire covert operations division. She was the person Una reported to, the person who had approved this mission 3 years ago, but Una could not approach her directly. Krath was watching. Every meeting, every conversation, every glance would be recorded and analyzed. She needed another way to pass her intelligence. The answer came from Jiwoo. There is a cultural exchange event tonight, Jiwoo said excitedly. Each species presents something unique about their civilization. The human delegation is sharing traditional books. Actual paper books, can you believe it? The aliens find them fascinating. Paper books. Physical objects that could not be scanned by Velith surveillance technology. I will attend, Una said. That evening, she stood among the human delegation as curious aliens examined their collection of ancient texts. There were poetry collections, history books, scientific journals, all printed on paper hundreds of years ago. Admiral Yunji was there, pretending to explain Earth literature to a group of Meridian scholars. Her gray hair was tied back and her posture was relaxed, but her eyes were sharp. Yuna moved through the crowd, holding a small book of her own. It looked like an old philosophy text, worn leather cover, yellowed pages. Inside, hidden among the printed words, she had written her report in a code that only Earth intelligence could read. Everything she had learned about the Academy. Every lie she had documented. Every piece of evidence that the Velith were using education as a weapon. She placed the book on the display table, in a specific position that would signal its importance. 30 minutes later, Admiral Yunji picked it up to show a Velith observer. "This is one of our favorites," the Admiral said, holding the book casually. "Ancient wisdom about patience and strategy. The humans who wrote it understood that the greatest victories come from waiting, watching, and striking at the perfect moment." The Velith observer looked bored and walked away. Yunji slipped the book into her bag. The exchange was complete. 3 years of intelligence, delivered in 5 seconds. Using technology so old that the Velith had never considered it a threat. But the night was not over. Halfway through the event, High Commander Soreth entered the room. He was the highest-ranking Velith military officer in the sector, Kreth's superior, and a legend among his people. He had personally commanded the attack on Hewan Colony. Yuna saw him and felt her heart turn to ice. This was the being who had killed her parents. This was the face she had seen in nightmares for 12 years. This was the monster she had trained her whole life to destroy, and he was walking directly toward the human delegation. "Admiral Yunji," Soreth said, his voice smooth and friendly. "How wonderful to see humanity participating in galactic culture. We Velith have always believed in the importance of education." "As have we," Yunji replied, her tone equally pleasant. "Though perhaps we define education differently. Perhaps." Soreth smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. "I understand there will be a special demonstration tomorrow. A celebration of interspecies unity, broadcast live to all 12 systems. The human delegation has been given an important role." Yuna's blood ran cold. "We are honored to participate," Yunji said. After Soreth left, Yuna found an excuse to approach the Admiral. "What demonstration?" she whispered. "I do not know yet, but my instincts tell me it is a trap." Yunji glanced around the room. "The Velith have been preparing something for months. This summit is not just diplomacy. It is theater, and we are the actors they need." That night, Yuna worked through every piece of intelligence she had gathered. She read her notes, reviewed her memories, connected patterns that had seemed random before. The Academy had been feeding false information to other species for decades. The summit had brought all the major powers together in one place. The Velith military had been positioning ships throughout the sector, supposedly for security. And tomorrow, there would be a live broadcast to the entire galaxy. The pieces came together like a puzzle she had been building for years. The demonstration was not a celebration. It was a staging event. The Velith were going to manufacture an incident. Something that made humanity look aggressive or dangerous. Something that justified the military buildup they had been hiding. They were going to start a war. And they were going to make it look like humanity's fault. Yuna contacted Do-hyun. "I need to know exactly what the demonstration involves. Every detail. Can you find out?" "It will be difficult. Security around the event is extremely tight. Please." "We have hours, not days." 3 hours later, Do-hyun sent his report. The demonstration was simple. Representatives from each species would stand on stage during a unity ceremony. They would recite words of peace and cooperation. They would shake hands or equivalent gestures. But according to Do-hyun's sources, the Velith had made special modifications to the broadcast equipment. Equipment that could alter what the camera showed in real time. They could make a human delegate appear to draw a weapon. They could create footage of an attack that never happened. They could broadcast their lie to 12 star systems before anyone could prove it was false dog by the time the truth came out. War would already have begun. Una sat in the darkness of her room and considered her options. She could run. She could warn Earth. She could escape before the trap closed. But that would not stop the broadcast. That would not prevent the war. That would not save the billions who would die when the Velith finally revealed their true intentions. There was only one way to stop this. She had to be on that stage. She had to find a way to expose the truth before the lie was told. She had to use everything she had learned, everything she had hidden, everything she was. Una had spent 3 years being invisible. Tomorrow, she would have to become the most visible person in the galaxy. She was terrified, but she was also ready. She thought of her parents, who had died believing help would come. She thought of Hawan Colony, erased from the universe by creatures who called murder peacekeeping. Tomorrow, the Velith would learn that humanity remembered. Humanity waited, and humanity did not forgive. The grand amphitheater was filled with light. Cameras pointed at the central stage from every angle. Representatives from 12 star systems stood in a perfect circle, dressed in ceremonial clothing, waiting to perform their roles in the Unity demonstration. Una stood among the human delegates. She wore simple clothes, nothing special, nothing that would draw attention. Ambassador Kreth had placed her in the back row, as far from the cameras as possible. He thought he was limiting her influence. He had no idea what she was planning. High Commander Sorth stood at the center of the stage, his gray skin polished, his 4 compound eyes reflecting the lights. Behind him, technicians operated the broadcast equipment that would carry this moment to billions across the galaxy. The equipment that would soon create a lie. "My friends," Sorth began, his voice filling the amphitheater, "today we celebrate the bonds that unite our civilizations. For too long, fear and suspicion have divided us. But here, at this Academy of Truth and Learning, we prove that cooperation is possible." Una watched the technicians. She had memorized the layout of their equipment, identified which systems controlled the visual filters, calculated exactly when they would activate the false footage. She had approximately 3 minutes before the Velith would manufacture their incident. Sorth continued his speech. He spoke of peace, of friendship, of the bright future that awaited all species who worked together. Every word was perfectly crafted. Every gesture was designed to make him appear trustworthy and wise. Una had heard enough lies. 2 minutes. She began moving through the crowd of delegates, slowly, carefully, like someone stretching their legs during a long ceremony. Kreth's eyes tracked her, but he was too far away to stop her. 1 minute. The technicians were preparing. She could see them checking their screens, adjusting controls, getting ready to change reality. 30 seconds. Una reached the front row of delegates. She was close to the stage now, close to the cameras, close to Sorth. "Close enough. Before we complete our ceremony," Sorth said, "I would like to invite any delegate to share words of hope for our future." This was it. The moment the Velith expected a human delegate to step forward, the moment they would activate their equipment, the moment their trap would close. Una stepped forward instead. "I would like to speak," she said, her voice clear and strong. Sorth's eyes narrowed. This was not the planned volunteer. But refusing her in front of the cameras would look suspicious. "Of course," he said. "Please, share your thoughts." Una walked to the center of the stage. She faced the cameras, knowing that billions of beings across 12 star systems were watching. She took a breath. "My name is Una," she said. "I am human. I was born on a colony world called Hawan. 12 years ago, the Velith Dominion destroyed my home and killed my family. They called it a peacekeeping operation." Whispers spread through the amphitheater. Sorth's expression changed, though he tried to hide it. I came to this academy 3 years ago, Yuna continued. I was told it was a place of learning. I was told it taught truth. But I learned something different. I learned that the academy is a weapon, a tool for teaching lies to the galaxy. Sorith moved toward her. This young woman is clearly disturbed. Please, let us help her. I am not disturbed, Yuna said, raising her voice. I have documents. I have evidence. And I will share it now, before these cameras, before the entire galaxy. She began reciting. Not emotions, not accusations, but facts. She named Velith military positions, hidden fleet movements, secret bases that the Dominion had built while pretending to pursue peace. She quoted from classified Velith communications, word for word. She described the changes made to Academy curriculum, showing exactly how lessons had been altered to weaken other species. And she explained the trap that was supposed to happen tonight. The broadcast equipment behind me has been modified, she said, pointing at the technician station. In approximately 90 seconds, it would have created false footage showing a human delegate attacking Commander Sorith. This footage would have been broadcast to all 12 systems. It would have been used to justify a Velith invasion of human space. The amphitheater erupted. Delegates from other species rushed toward the equipment. Technicians tried to flee. Security officers from multiple civilizations converged on the stage, uncertain who to restrain. Sorith grabbed Yuna's arm. His grip was strong enough to bruise bone. You have destroyed yourself, he hissed. You have destroyed your entire species. Yuna looked into his compound eyes. She saw the creature who had killed her parents, who had burned her world, who had spent decades preparing to do the same to others. No, she said. I have exposed what you are. The whole galaxy is watching. You cannot hide anymore. Kreth appeared behind Sorith. Commander, we must leave. Now. The other delegations are demanding an investigation. If we stay, I know. Sorith released Yuna's arm. His face was twisted with rage, but he was already calculating his retreat. This is not over, human. Your species will pay for this. He turned and walked away, surrounded by Velith security officers. The broadcast continued. Cameras captured everything. The chaos, the accusations, the evidence that Yuna had revealed. Across 12 star systems, billions of beings saw the truth about the Velith Dominion. 3 hours later, Yuna sat in a secure room aboard an Earth military vessel. Admiral Eunji sat across from her, along with Doyun and representatives from Earth's diplomatic corps. The other species have formed a coalition, Eunji reported. They're demanding full disclosure of all Velith military activities. Several systems have already closed their borders to Velith ships. The expansion is stopped, at least for now. Yuna nodded. She felt tired. Tired in her bones. Tired in her soul. What happens to me? She asked. Your cover is destroyed. The Velith know exactly who you are and what you did. You cannot return to the Academy, obviously. And there will be consequences we cannot predict. Eunji paused. But you saved billions of lives tonight. Humanity owes you a debt we can never fully repay. Later, after the meetings and the reports and the endless questions, Yuna found herself alone in an observation room. Through the window, she could see the station Concordia growing smaller as the ship accelerated toward Earth. The door opened behind her. Sister. Taiho stood in the doorway. He was older than she remembered, with lines around his eyes and gray in his hair. But his smile was the same smile she remembered from childhood, warm and proud. Yuna ran to him. They held each other for a long time, saying nothing. You never did like taking notes, Taiho said finally. Yuna laughed, the first real laugh she had allowed herself in years. I was always better at writing the lesson myself. They stood together, watching the stars. Somewhere behind them, the Velith were retreating. Somewhere ahead, Earth was waiting. And somewhere in the space between, the galaxy was learning a lesson it would never forget. The Velith had spent centuries perfecting the art of teaching others what to believe. They had built an academy of lies, trained generations of students in false knowledge, and prepared an empire of deception. They had never considered that one human might sit in their classroom, not to learn, but to grade their performance. They had never imagined that the quiet girl in the back row, the one who never took notes, was the most dangerous student they had ever accepted. And they had never understood the most important truth about humanity. Humans remembered. Humans learned. Humans adapted. And when they finally struck, they struck with everything they had. Yuna watched the stars burn in the endless dark. She thought about her parents, finally at peace. She thought about Hewan, finally avenged. And she thought about the future, finally bright. The lesson was over. She had passed.